Do you like dogs? I do too. That's why today's episode is brought to you by BarkBox.com. Get one free extra month of BarkBox at www.getbarkbox.com/Paratruth. Welcome to Paratruth Radio, the Christmas edition. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a brand new episode of Paratruth Radio. My name is Eric.
And I'm Justin.
And boys and girls, do we have a show for you tonight?
That we do.
First and foremost, though, before getting into tonight's episode, I think Justin and I both want to do one very special thing, and that is wish everybody a very happy, merry, and safe Christmas this weekend. I know we are broadcasting on Christmas Eve, so I can't imagine many of you are listening at this moment, but if you are, share with your families. Yeah. It's the best Christmas gift to give. Paratruth Radio.
And also make sure to have a very safe and happy New Year, because after this episode, there will not be one for a little while, so we won't be doing a technical New Year's episode this year.
Indeed, this is true, but that doesn't mean you can't still reach us and contact us and talk to us about stuff or even give us ideas of topics. But we will cover a lot more of that towards the end of the show. I think we might as well just go ahead and get into the stuff that you guys are all waiting for.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, for those of you listening at paratruthradio.com, TMV Cafe, Fringe Radio Network, and Paranormal UK Radio Network, let's get ready to expose some lies.
For the past 3 years, Paratruth Radio has explored the mysterious and unexplainable. Tonight, as we close out this season of PTR, we celebrate Christmas and the coming New Year by taking a look at some of our favorite moments from some of our fan-favorite episodes. As we do, we will re-explore some of the most interesting topics in the paranormal and shed new light on recent evidence.
So, over the past 3 years, just to get your perspective, what have been some of your favorite episodes?
Oh man, there's been so many great episodes, both with guests and without guests. And I think obviously two of my favorite right off the top of my head that I can think of is of course Bray Road, or the Bray Road Beast episode. And then of course the Salem Witch Trials episode. I loved it. That one was called Salem Witch Trials, The Birth of American Communism. And that was probably one of our most fascinating shows or episodes in the past 3 years.
Yeah.
Definitely has the most views. But yeah, those are probably my top two. And I have to say, because we might as well put three out there, right?
For sure.
The other episode that I really enjoyed, I don't even know why. I think it was just both kind of, frightening in a way and just kind of interesting, is the Goatman episode. I loved the Goatman episode. And I know a lot of our fans did too. We got a lot of replies on that and people talking to us on Facebook. But what about you?
By far, I think the top one, because listening through some episodes to come up with clips, by far one of my top ones, if not my top one, was Evolution 2.0. Mm-hmm. And I think it was just a good conversation that did it. But I also feel that, like you said, there's been so many.
There have been.
One of the ones that I really liked was the one we did with Kay on Thunderbirds.
Okay.
And it's sad to say this, but part of the reason of that is the sound effects that we had for our little intro thing that we did with the Thunderbird that you did. So
I forgot that I even did that. I have to go back and check it out. Well, unless you have it as a clip.
No, I don't. But
okay, I'll have to go back and check it out.
There was that one, the Lake Monsters one with that audio, and I don't remember if you did it with the Voodoo intro, but the Voodoo trailer that you did for that episode, right, I loved really, really well.
So what we're going to do here, folks, just to give you a heads up, I mean, if you didn't kind of gather what we were saying here, but we're going to go through some of these fan favorite episodes, the episodes that you guys liked, the ones that have some of the most listens, some of the most popular episodes we've done over the last 3 years. And we're going to just play a couple of clips from each of those episodes and then discuss them. And we're going to discuss either our current viewpoints on the subject now, if anything has changed. We're going to discuss new evidence supporting or not supporting that evidence or the topic. And we're just going to have some fun tonight. We're going to really enjoy Christmas and the New Year's tonight doing this. So I hope you all are ready and interested. And of course, during this episode or after this episode, feel free to contact us and give us your thoughts on any of these topics or any of these clips. I know there's a few of them you're going to want to listen to very closely and let us know your thoughts. But without further ado, Justin, would you like to offer up your first episode, your first clip?
Yep. We're going to go with, this one goes way back to when we first started. I did an interview with David Rufino. It was the day that Eric had to be absent, but he did a book called The Unholy Communion. And it was a great conversation with David, and I loved having him on. Wish I could get a hold of him to get him back on. But we talked about what got him started in the work, and so here's a clip just after our first break that I was talking to him. So here we go. So David, we were touching base on how you got started in the work, and now when you finally started talking to people about the abductions and how just invoking the name of Christ could just get rid of it temporarily, did people approach you, or did you have to find people, or did they just approach you after you spoke at Roswell? How did that go?
Well, one of the things that we found real interesting is Jim Wilhelmsen, my associate, and I, we would always go rent a table down in Roswell at the convention center, and we would promote our books or our work anyway. But and we were expecting all these New Age people, all these secular people to come up to us and speak to us. But most of the people that came up to us, I would say a good 90%, were all Christians or claimed to be Christians, and they wanted to know the truth about it. And so when we would explain to them what we're all about, I would say out of that 90%, a good 80% of them told us that they had similar experiences. And it was a real surprise to us. It really was. And so we said, we want to get the word out, and we really appreciate your coming and telling us this, because it shows us that there's a silent segment of the Christian church that has found this truth out, but they're afraid to say anything because they're going to be labeled as fanatics, or they're going to be labeled as nuts, or you're getting into demonic stuff doing,
right?
And so when I wrote the book, I wrote it. I had a real challenge because I had to write it for people that don't know Christ, of course, but I also had to write it for people that did and wanted to express themselves and realize that no, in fact, you have gone through real experiences and you're not crazy, and that many other people have, and you've seen that in the testimonies in the book, and we've gotten a lot more over the years, letters on the internet and things like that of people who have actually written and said, again, thanks. I know I'm not crazy, and I know I'm not demon possessed, and we just want to thank you for that. So we heard it first from people, from believers, and then we decided, we really got to get this word out to more believers of what's going on, and we've also developed a little network of people that want to help out, and we have an organization called PAPSI. It's the Paranormal and Alien Abduction Problem Solvers International, and there are other ministries out here to do this, but people can call us any time of the day or night if they're having problems, and we'll pray with them over the phone. Jim is a really good counselor. He was a pastor for many years. Okay. And, he pastored the King's Kids in Detroit, founded it, as a matter of fact. So he's really adept at teaching, and he's adept at helping people who are having problems paranormally, as many of us are. But I would say he's the best authority in the whole thing. But so we had people that saw what was going on, and they wanted to help out too. So we have a whole list of people around the country. I think we still have a man over in England, somebody in Central Africa who likes to help out, and so we're trying to bring more people aboard that can do that. So other people can get freed and know that they can fight these things off and not have to worry about them anymore. And after a while, you start laughing them off.
All right. So the one thing that comes to my mind listening to this conversation with David was before I had talked to David, you and I had kind of discussed the abduction phenomenon a little bit, just you and I. And after talking to David, it actually completely changed my mind about the abduction cases. Now, that's not to say I don't still believe that there's aliens out there. I just don't believe that they're abducting people to do whatever they're doing when they do these abduction cases. But I had thought to myself after talking to David, after talking to you, why would extraterrestrials be scared of the name of Jesus Christ? If they're not of this world, how would they even know him? So that's what had changed my mind wholeheartedly from the very beginning after talking to you and him. So what are your thoughts on that clip and just David Rufino in general?
Well, David Rufino, man, I remember I was promoting him to you like crazy. I had him on Forgotten Truth Radio. I'd spoken with him back in 2012, and he was just a great guest. I loved talking to him. We spent about an hour online and then some more time after that just chatting. I was like, dude, you got to check this guy out. We need to have him on. And sure enough, I was in Los Angeles when he came on. And so I wasn't able to do the show, but luckily you got to hear from him yourself and just not by my own word of mouth. So, I love David Rufino. I love the book on Holy Communion. For those of you who are interested in this type of topic as to whether or not aliens are demonic entities or what they are, On Holy Communion by David Rufino is a great book. Check it out. Very informative. But, there's a couple of things. One, I've noticed that since 2012 when I had him on, and mind you, that's what, 12, 14, 15, 16, 6 years, 5, 6 years, 6 years, over the last 5 or 6 years, this idea of aliens being demonic entities has really gone viral. It's widespread. People are starting to believe it more and more. People who are both Christian and non-Christian are starting to believe it more and more. And there's more evidence supporting it. People coming forth and saying, yeah, hey, I was being abducted by an alien and I decided to call out in Jesus' name and it stopped in his tracks or it disappeared or whatever happened. It changed the momentum of that attack in favor of the person who was being attacked. So, there must be something happening here. There must be some type of truth to this idea. You had mentioned that, if they're actually aliens, why would they be afraid of Jesus? If they don't know anything of Earth and this and that. But at the same time, you have to think like when it comes to aliens, and this isn't, just to support alien life. Well, I support the idea that there might be alien life. But if they're as high tech, as theory believes them to be, as myth and legend believes them to be, then they should know our Earth's history, world history. If they've been traveling here since the beginning of time, like many of the Sumerians and the Egyptians and, and everyone like that has been writing down on the stones and in their different scriptures and stuff, then you would think they know world history and therefore know who Jesus is and know what he's done and hence would have a relative fear of him. But on top of that, we got to remember how widespread God is. I mean, God isn't just associated with Earth. He's associated with all the universe. So to say that Jesus didn't visit other planets, we don't know.
Right.
We only know what happened here on Earth. So, but nonetheless, I think it's again, super interesting topic. I think there's a lot more information starting to come out of the woodwork, more people showing up and saying, hey, this story is true. Jesus casts out these aliens and my abductions have stopped. And I look forward to see what happens over the next 4 or 5 years, in regards to this theory.
Right. Well, the only thing that You could be right where maybe they do know the name of Jesus or they know who he is, and that would give them reason enough to be afraid. But on top of that, there have been different people say that, just the atmosphere changes once they, when they're being abducted. It's more of a heavy, almost like you would feel if you're being oppressed or if you're a part of a haunting, and then you pray.
It's almost that mildew feel. You ever walk into an old house and there's a ton of mildew and mold in there? It's that heavy feeling, that heavy air. It's almost very similar to that of a demonic entity being around.
So that's the only thing that I can think of that is the huge difference here, is a lot of people will say that's the feeling they had. Then they prayed to Jesus and it was gone. And that's how, I mean, if there was a physical alien there, I don't know what the atmosphere of the room would feel like, but I don't think there would be that heavy feeling there.
Right. Well, and again, it really depends on what exactly we're talking about aliens. Like, people are, all right, throughout all the history that we've read about alien life, at least as far back to 1947, beyond that even, when we're talking about, again, the Sumerians and stuff, who's to say that they're physical beings? They could be spiritual beings and therefore can have this presence. Also, many of these attacks, which is believed, and David Rufino mentions this, is that some of these attacks or alien abductions actually happen while a person is sleeping, meaning they're never awake. So it's almost like a dream state or a nightmare. And much like how demons like to work, they like to work in your mind as you're asleep because you can't, you're less aware. You can't fight as easily when you're sleeping. And I've witnessed this. I know you've witnessed this before to some extent. But yeah, that heavy feeling is interesting because that is something that I've experienced personally many, many, many times. Yeah. And it always results in some type of horrific monsters, demon attack, that has happened in the past. But yeah, who's to say? Aliens and demons, I think they are one and the same, at least to the ones that we're talking about,
Right.
I don't know if there's necessarily alien life that is smarter than us or has better technology than us. I think there's alien life, and you can't see me with the quotations here, but I think there's alien life, meaning that there's probably life on another planet somewhere, whether that be bacteria or something else. But that's getting into a whole nother topic.
It just doesn't necessarily mean intelligent. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Right.
Well, and there's a lot of people that have said interdimensional beings over extraplanetary, I guess you could call them, beings. Mm-hmm. So I think you're right there. And it could be two separate things too. Who knows? But only time will tell if we ever really do find that part out. So next, what's next on our clip plays? Where do you want to go there?
So, all right. So one of my favorite episodes, and it was actually a huge favorite of some of our fans. We got a lot of messages on YouTube about it, actually, and as well as Facebook, is the Zozo Demon episode. I think we called it Zozo the Ouija Demon. Mm-hmm. And Zozo, for those of you who don't know, is a demon who's been associated with the Ouija board. People who've played it have been in contact with the Zozo Demon, and this demon has done a number of different things to different people throughout its history, or at least the history that we know of it. There's suggestion that it goes back millions of years, thousands of years at least, the ancient times. But nonetheless, there's this clip here that we're going to play, another clip. I just want you guys to listen to it, and then we'll discuss it after that.
There is a theory, and of course I personally don't believe this theory. I think it's completely whack. But that if a spirit were to, or you as a person were able to go from A to Z, or from one end of the alphabet to the other, back and forth, you actually open a portal to the spirit world.
Yeah,
that's how you open it.
I did see that too, yeah.
And so we see through a lot of these stories that Zozo constantly goes Z-O, 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 back and forth over and over and over and over again. It's very repetitive. And then he gets to a point where he starts answering any questions, all questions, with the same answer, because it's extremely repetitive.
It's a very interesting thing here. Zozo is a repetitive demon. It's one of those where it'll answer a question, and then every question you ask after that, it'll continue with its original answer. For example, and this is completely ridiculous, Eric, what did you have for a snack today? Well, I had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Now, how was your day? A peanut butter and jelly sandwich. How's the family? Peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It's kind of like that. Not obviously, like I said, it's an extreme, but the Zozo demon would start answering like that. It would be circle in onto one specific topic or, whatever it is that it's trying to tell you, and it would just go crazy. But the reason I wanted to play this clip, it's really interesting, and I don't know what your thought. I'm going to hear your thoughts in a moment here, Justin. But this idea of opening a portal by jumping from one end of the alphabet to the other, and I'm talking about using a Ouija board. I don't think by saying AZ, 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 AZ is going to open a portal anywhere. But the theory is that if you're on this Ouija board and you're going from one end of the alphabet to the other really fast, somehow there's like a rip in the time-space continuum, and it'll open this portal to another dimension, which allows the demonic entities to come through, or whatever spirits. At the time, I said I did not believe this. Before I answer, I want to take it to you and get your thoughts.
Well, in my opinion, just by using a Ouija board, you're opening a portal.
Right.
So you don't have to spell anything on there specific to open a portal. I don't think doing anything other than just using it can open the portal. One thing that, if you think about it, when you go from A to Z, if you were to just do that 3 times, you're kind of creating a Z, because if you know the shape of the Ouija board, you have the A through whatever it is, and then whatever it is to Z on the bottom. So in order to go from A to Z, you would have to kind of create a Z. So to kind of get the Zozo demon's attention, if you will, you could maybe do that. I don't necessarily know if that's true or not, or if I even believe that, but that's the only reason that I could think of is why they would go to A to Z 3 times. But in my opinion, like I said, just using the Ouija board opens that portal, opens that doorway.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so, as I said, at the time, I didn't believe this, and I still don't believe it. So, yeah, see, I got you going. I still don't believe it because there's just simply not enough evidence to support this theory. The only people who claim that this is true are people who've actually watched Zozo go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I've never in all my life watching people do Ouija board or even participating in a Ouija board, seances and stuff like that in the past. Just so we're clear. No one has ever done that. It's never been a thing. And so I think this is just one of those weird theories as to why would Zozo do this? And I think it's simply a fear factor thing. It's spelling its name over and over and over again. It's a repetitive demon. That's what it does. And it draws fear. It draws a lot of fear. Now, I think there's a possibility that by going back and forth, what it's doing, because your hands are on it, mind you, mm-hmm. It's getting you a little worried, right? It's starting to build your anxiety a bit. Maybe your heart's moving a little faster. You're moving faster. What is that? What's happening? It's generating energy, mm-hmm. Your own energy, and it's going to feed off of that energy that your body's producing and become stronger and stronger until it's able to do whatever it needs to do. So I think that's a more likely cause for going ZO, building that energy so it has some type of field to feed off of. But beside that, a portal being opened up, I don't think so. Like we said, simply calling on a demon, simply talking to a spirit, hey, what's your name, opens that portal. So there's only so, I don't think there's any extremes here.
I agree with you, and I don't know where that theory really came from or that story, other than maybe people just trying to do this. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What was the name of that one spirit that people were using the pencil for? Was it Sammy or something like that?
Goodness, I think it was Sammy. Was it Sammy?
It was something
Sammy
like that.
Or Freddy or
folks, if you remember, please leave it in the comments. I can't remember. I didn't do research on it, but that almost has a Zozo feel to it. Mm-hmm. That whole thing that was going on. So I almost wonder if Zozo crossed over from, because Zozo has been known to be a part of the Ouija board, but to cross over where people are using not necessarily a Ouija board, just yes or no, which could basically be a Ouija board. I feel that he could just cross over, let them call him whatever they want to, and still be that same thing.
Right.
All right. So next up is a topic we did for a Thanksgiving episode, and this was about the lost colony of Roanoke. So I'm going to play a clip here for you guys from that episode, and we will go from there.
So we've discussed a little bit of what there are for the theories that what had actually possibly happened. Hurricane took out the colony, possibly UFOs taking out the colony, the colonists possibly maybe moving on with the Croatoan tribes to survive because the food was scarce. Possibly one of the other tribes taking the colony out. What's the first thing that comes to mind for you would be what would be a good possibility?
For me, I would say a hurricane, just a massive storm. Being on an island like that, and me personally, going down to Carolina Beach, North Carolina, and seeing firsthand hurricanes coming through and what kind of damage they do. And we see it on TV every year, numerous times.
Yeah.
You know that they're more than capable of devastating everything. They can tear down structures, and anyone caught in the surf, when it happens to flood and rise, gets pulled out of the sea, which would explain why they went missing. However, the only problem with that theory is that it doesn't explain the word Croatoan on the post.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think when it comes down to this mystery, the word Croatoan is really the biggest mystery of them all. It's also the biggest clue.
Yeah, that's the biggest clue in evidence.
But I mean, if I had to come down and throw away any clues that we had, if I had to, if I was able to throw away the word Croatoan, I would say the most likely thing then at this particular time would be that a hurricane came through. Because the word Croatoan could be carved on there for any reason whatsoever. There are many reasons why it might have been carved on there.
You said, it could have been somebody misspelling Croatan for the tribe. And it actually could be a possibility. Maybe somebody left that message. Somehow they knew there was bad weather coming, left, and then that's, a hurricane came through and took out the cabins, and that's why the cabins were gone.
It's a possibility. It absolutely is. What about you? What are you thinking?
Just because the cabins were gone and that word was left there, my mind kind of goes away from the hurricane taking out the people. Mm-hmm. I don't know, just because that word was left there, it almost makes me feel like either it was a warning, saying maybe the Croatan somehow had a change of heart and decided to take out this colony, and somebody left that word there as a warning. But for John White to come and there was no evidence of a struggle, I would think that there would be some evidence of that particular theory, like spears being left behind. A lot of tribes back then would leave heads on pikes, heads on spears, different warning signs that you better not be coming back to this particular place. To be honest, my best guess would be they left with the Croatans, left that word there to tell John White where they were, but for him to never find them again is a mystery. I'm not sure.
Okay, so to finish that off, we went a little bit further with it after that clip where I had said to Eric, this word Croatoan appeared a couple other places. Now, in the episode, I was calling her Emily. It's not Emily. It's Amelia Earhart. Had this written in her, I don't know why I was calling her Emily. I had this written in her journal, Croatoan. Edgar Allan Poe had been found muttering this word. And there was a couple of others, Black Bart, I believe, and there was one other author, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but that word was associated with other places than the Roanoke Island.
Mm-hmm.
So has anything changed in your opinion on that?
Not really. I mean, you know what? Josh Gates did an episode on Croatoan, on this whole Croatoan Island thing. And, there's just not enough evidence to support they were necessarily attacked. In fact, it would appear that maybe they up and moved. Maybe there was a big storm that was coming in and they decided to head it, further inland. And John White just simply didn't know where to look. Maybe they went far enough in where he just figured, okay, well, they must have been attacked, and that's that. As we know, stories, they change over time, rumors spread, and sure enough, we got this mystery on our hand. But the idea of the Croatoan showing up in other cultures and throughout the world, and like other authors using it and things like that, I think Croatoan has become kind of this idealistic idea of a mysterious case in which a city goes missing, or it can apply to a number of different things that people go missing, just this mystery.
So somebody saying like the Croatoan.
Kind of, yeah, like the Croatoan. I think it's more so just used as a saying now, and that there's not really there's not really a link to it, like a extraterrestrial link or some type of outside source of this supernatural link or something like that. I think it just happens that some people started using it, to explain certain things.
That's a pretty good possibility. I like Amelia Earhart, for example. Maybe she was flying and saw something and was like, just like the Croatoan mystery or something, she didn't finish her sentence because maybe she crashed or whatever happened to her. Same thing like you were saying with the writers like Edgar Allan Poe. He saw it somewhere and maybe he was trying to think of something or explain something. So that is a pretty good possibility. And them moving would make sense. But the only thing that doesn't make sense with them moving is how would they have uplifted the pillars and everything, or would that have just been from the storm?
That would have just been from the storm, most likely. I mean, they could have uplifted it. I mean, I don't know what they had to do it. I don't think they had elephants or any big, like the Egyptians did, or have any cranes or anything like that. But
hey, get the elephant off the ship from India.
Right. Exactly. No, I think in this case, it just happened to be the storm came in and probably wiped most of it out to sea or something like that, Okay.
Well, and that would make the most sense as to what happened. There's no real logical explanation that we can come to other than that as to what happened there. So
right.
So where did you want to go for your next clip?
Well, one of our most famous episodes is Salem, the Birth of American Communism. This episode on Spreaker alone has nearly 6,000 downloads. Now, mind you, this episode is spread throughout the internet on a number of different platforms. So you can just imagine how many people have already downloaded or played this thing. Right. So it's definitely something that people have really been interested in. And it was one of my favorite. I love talking about Salem, the Salem witch trials. And so this next clip is actually going to share some information that I didn't really know at the time. And I don't think you even really knew at the time quite the same. So let's go ahead and play that and see what it is.
So, I mean, there were about 5 total myths here regarding the Salem witch trials, which I think a lot of people just misunderstand. The very first myth is that the convicted witnesses were burned at the stake. I think this is a common one that people constantly think, if a witch is going to be executed for the witchcraft, they're likely being burned. But that didn't happen in Salem. In fact, according again to the Washington Post, it was usually the French witches, those in France, who were burned, while English witches were hung. Hence the reason those of Salem, Massachusetts were all hung. And so I think that's just something that, we see in movies, we see in books of these people being burned, but that was something that happened overseas most often. So that's myth number one.
Well, one thing I like about this myth in the Washington Post is that there was a conundrum at Channel Island of Guernsey when three witches turned up in 1617. The people hung them, then burned them. They're like, screw this. We're not taking any chances here. You're getting both. I don't care how you're supposed to be done. You're getting both.
I don't know, man. Some of the things you say in regards to some of these topics, I'm just like,
I speak what's on my mind. I can't help it. Just
I guess that must be what it is. So interesting about this, I did not know, which is interesting. I did not know at the time that it was French witches that were burned and English witches that were hung. Despite all the research I've done on Salem, despite all of the movies based on the Salem witch trials and English witch trials, and seeing witches being hung, I still, for some reason, believe that they were burned. And I think that has something to do with Hollywood using that whole burn scenario. But nonetheless, interesting find. And it finally clicked, I guess, doing the research on this episode. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, it's interesting because this Salem witch trial, it wasn't the most, oh, forgive me, it is one of the most famous incidents in American history. But surprisingly, it didn't affect Salem nearly as much as it did other villages. And there was actually a village not too far outside of Salem that was affected even worse by this terrible moment in time. Yeah. And surprisingly, that's not, I don't know why it is a Salem, ended up getting the credit for being, this crazy witch hunting village.
It was probably just the biggest town at the time, more than likely.
It very well might have been, yeah. What are your thoughts on this? I mean, is this something that you knew about the burns compared to hanging, or was this kind of new to you too?
No, before doing the research for that, I had always thought burn the witch at the stake. That's all we've ever really seen in Hollywood. The show American Horror Story did a Salem witch descendant season where if a witch were to harm another witch, they would burn them at the stake, which if they would have done their research in Salem, they would have been hung, not burned. So I feel that burning people is a little more traumatic if you think about it. Like, people getting hung is traumatic, but being burned alive, smelling your own flesh being burned, that's just way more traumatic and would cause a much more shock factor, if you will.
Right. And we say this like we actually know.
Well, just the description of what you would assume would be happening anyways, I guess.
Right.
So from doing the research on the Salem witch trials, and we did the episode on it, did anything change in your mind as to what caused the Salem witch trials or why these people did it?
No, I don't think so. I think this really was the birth of American communism. I think that whoever it was, the priest or the judge or whoever, used this as a fear tactic and really blew something out of proportion. I don't think it should have gone as far as it did by any means. I think they're trying to scare people into following biblical principles and to follow their laws at the time, and it just went out of whack, which is really sad considering how many people had lost their lives, both male, female, and animals. That is men, women, and animals. I don't know why I said male, female, because animals are male or female too, right? So, but anyway, yeah, I mean, I think that's what it had to be. It had to be just things got out of hand. You know, someone trying to use it as a fear factor, a scare tactic. What about you?
I had actually not done a whole. I mean, I had seen movies, I had read a couple of books on the Salem Witch Trials, but never a full in-depth research on it until we did the episode. So I did learn quite a bit doing the research, and that would. I mean, the only explanation that I can come up with is kind of like you're saying, people just trying to put the thumb down and be in control. Listening through some of the clips that I did for doing this episode, a guest that we had on named John B. Wells, you guys would know him from Caravan to Midnight, had voiced his personal opinion, saying that, you know, maybe these priests thought these girls were hot to trot, and you know, the burning on the loins was only because of the devil, and that's a good, I mean, possibility too. They used religion to say this is why they were lusting after other women other than their wives. It had to be a witch's curse in order to do that, because they were Puritan Christians that didn't stray from their wives, so that there had to be a spell. So that would be a good possibility too, but I feel it would be more so an oppression type factor over using it as an excuse to be promiscuous.
Right. I agree.
So, all right. So the next clip is actually one that fascinated me so much. We had on Von Brashler, and he wrote a book called A Reluctant Ghost Hunter, I believe is what the title was. And him and Eric were just like clicking on the opinions that Eric had, and Von Brashler was just like right on page with him. So I want to share this clip because it's really awesome, because Von Brashler had admitted that he was a medium, not necessarily what you would think of going and doing these readings in halls and that sort of a thing, but just going into homes and trying to clear a house. So listen to this clip. I want you guys to hear this. All right. Eric, why don't you take it away?
All right. One of the things I noticed in your book, and you had just mentioned a little bit earlier here on air, is the fact that spirits don't have feet. And so they're not walking across the ground. The footsteps we hear are manipulated in some way. Another thing you mentioned in your book is how they're deceitful, manipulative, so on and so forth.
Yep.
Many people see human spirits, and I'm personally, I have a Christian worldview. I don't believe that human spirits walk on earth. I believe only demons do, and they manipulate everything. But one of the things that are very interesting to me is the fact that everyone sees spirits wearing clothes.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
Yeah,
you know, and as far as I'm concerned,
good point.
As far as I'm concerned, any spirit walking around would be naked or have really no physical form whatsoever, which is very interesting to me. What is your take on just that right there?
Yeah, they project what they project their conscious thought forms, and their thought forms would be that they are wearing the clothes that they feel right to wear. It might be clothes that were of the period. So if you were to see a ghost, a legitimate ghost, let's say, that had lived in the 1890s, they're not going to be wearing today's clothing. They're going to be wearing 1890s clothing most likely, and you see them that way because they're projecting that in their and we see them that way. But you don't see them so much with your eyes. I mean, you can catch them sometimes out of the corner of your eye, but ordinarily we see them like with like a mental image. It's like it's really hard to tell people that have never had psychic imagery, but it's like you just have a something you see inside your head. It's like the third eye. Sometimes it's called the third eye, and so you see it in your head, or you hear it in your head, and sometimes it seems like it's so clear and so audible that you hear it, and then when you break it down, it wasn't your ears that heard it, So back to the fact that they have no feet, they are phantasms. They are an energy body, is what they are, and it's conscious thoughts. They no longer have a physical form. So your premise that they may all be non-human things or demonic, it is possible. But I think when you talk to a number of people, and I've written here on the first person, these are my own experiences, so I only have my own experience. But you talk to a lot of people, and they will typically, very often, after a relative or close, dear loved one passes away, that person will pass before their gaze. Let's say they'll see them in their mind's eye, or they might even hear them speak to them.
So most psychics or mediums, or both, have always argued with Eric's point of view. Now, for a medium to come out and say, hey, you might be right, was like a huge step, in my opinion, in the belief system of a psychic medium. And there was a couple other points that Eric had brought up that Von Brash was like, no, you're right. Like, he had brought up, Eric had brought up using a Ouija board, and Von was like, no, absolutely not. I agree. You should not be using a Ouija board. So it was really awesome to hear that a medium was agreeing with Eric's point of view. What were your thoughts, either during that conversation or afterwards?
Well, it's kind of hard to remember exactly the conversation at the time. I remember thinking that this guy is easy to talk to because many would shut me out or us out. But what I liked about him is that he did have this, even though he had his own set worldview, he kept his mind open to other possibilities, and I think that was very clear just in that one clip that you played there.
Right.
And it still confuses me. It still gets me weird. It still doesn't make sense to me why spirits would be wearing clothes when clothes themselves don't have a soul, it just doesn't make sense to me. And also, why do these spirits, according to his research, not have feet? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. Now I've never seen a quote unquote human spirit. Never a full-bodied one. I've seen shadow figures. I've seen demonic entities. I've seen recently the face of a spirit, which I talked to you about about a week ago or so.
Yeah.
But besides that, I've never seen an actual full figure, clear as day, very detailed human spirit. And so I question some of the evidence that is out there, some of the eyewitness accounts. I think a lot of it could be played just in the mind. Like he said, he calls it the mind's eye. I don't know if that's the correct term for it per se, but I think just in one's imagination. Basically, if you're in your basement and you're scared of the dark, chances are any sound you hear is going to, scare you that much more, or you're going to think you're seeing stuff. I can't tell you how many times I've been afraid of something at a certain moment in time, and I feel like I see a shadow dart across the wall. So I think your mind can play tricks on you and therefore help to develop the look of a spirit. But whether or not the spirit actually looks the way you think it looks, that I think is up to debate,
right? Especially
during the situation.
Well, I've never seen a full-bodied, but when I worked at Good Samaritan, this was actually when I first moved here. I had seen a shadow person kind of like in our dry storage room, darting back and forth, like peeking in at me. And the one time, one of the residents had passed away, and I had heard my name being called by a woman's voice calling my name. And I looked around, didn't see a door open or anything. I walked around the corner and I saw the flow of this white flowery dress walk around the back towards our fryer. So I followed it around. Nobody was there. Doing some talking to people, I had found out that this woman actually had owned a flowery dress when she was younger, not while she lived there, and had loved wearing flowery dresses. So there was a correlation there. But I've never seen a full body one, especially in places that we've done investigations. And people had claimed to see full body. That was a human person right there, kind of deal.
Right. No, yeah, we've only seen shadow people when we've done our investigations. I know we saw a shadow person at Ghost Alley. I know we've seen shadow people in some of the other homes that we worked in. I remember, this is off topic, but I remember our very first investigation was right here in my basement.
Yeah.
And in my sister's bedroom, and we actually got EVP. That helped correlate certain things. But that's, again, another topic for another time. But, it's interesting. It's weird. It's hard to explain. And I guess that's why we're researching it. We're researching the unexplainable. We're researching the mysterious. That's what we do here on Paratruth Radio. And so we don't have the answer for that one yet. But perhaps it's right around the corner. Perhaps on a future near episode of Paratruth Radio.
We shall see. But that actually brings us into our next couple of clips that you had sent me.
It does. It absolutely does. So we did a series. It was called The Ghost Among Us. And we actually had a 4-part series. It began with an intro, then went into 3 separate episodes on 3 different investigations that we have done. But one of my favorite, and we saved the best for last, was an episode regarding an investigation that Justin and I did at Jeffrey Dahmer's house here in Ohio, in Bath, Ohio. For those of you who don't know who Jeffrey Dahmer is, which I think everybody knows who Jeffrey Dahmer is, he was a serial killer who happened to choose men to kill, and mostly because he had a certain attraction to them. And then occasionally he would eat them. So he was a bit of a cannibal. But so what's interesting about Jeffrey Dahmer's house, this is the house that he grew up in. This is also the house that he committed his very first murder, which was the murder of Stephen Hicks. He beat him over the head with a dumbbell, cut him up into pieces, then separated his bones from his flesh, put them in separate garbage bags, and then buried them throughout the backyard. So pretty gross. Even to this day, there's still an investigation going on trying to figure out who else had been murdered and where else they can find some of this, the locations of these people who had been killed. But so a little bit of backstory there. We're going to go ahead and get into 2 clips here. Let's start off with the first one, which is going to be, well, actually, it's up to you. It doesn't matter which one it is. So let's start with the first one. We'll discuss that a little bit, and then we'll do the second one.
All right.
Damn bugs are attracted to the freaking light. I know. I keep getting them in my face because of the light on this.
Actually, what I want to do, I want to go ahead and play that one more time. You're going to hear, for those of you who didn't notice, you're going to hear a whisper, and then after it cuts, you're going to hear a relapse 3 times of that same whisper. See if you can hear what it's saying.
Damn bugs are attracted to the freaking light. I know. I keep getting them in my face because of the light on this.
All right. So a little bit of context. Justin, myself, and one of our investigators named Kyle, we were out in the backyard. Now, the backyard was interesting because it was a wooded backyard, but there were nails in the trees. These were nails that Jeffrey Dahmer had hammered in, torturing small animals when he was a kid. So we always had to be careful because at that time, the trees had grown, and therefore some of these nails were about eye level, and they were still in the trees. So we're going around. And actually, this happened, I think, right after I almost got my own eye taken out by a nail sticking out of a tree.
Yeah.
And
I shouldn't be laughing at that, but yeah.
I couldn't believe that we found it, though. I was like, oh my gosh, it was so creepy. But so we're having this conversation, and you hear what I thought said, or what I think says, "I can't breathe," in a whisper. And I know for a while, you and me, we had gone over that clip so many times to try to figure out if that was actually one of us saying that under our breath, or if it was something else. And like, it almost sounds a little bit like you whispering to me.
Yeah, it does sound like
a little bit. Like, now that I've bumped it up, now we have better technology than we did even back then.
Yeah.
We were able to bump it up, and it sounded like you. And so my question is, was it you? Do you think it was you?
After listening, when we had first done that episode for The Ghost Among Us, it didn't sound like it at the time. I don't think we had adjusted it properly. But listening to it now, it does sound like me, but I don't remember what I would have been saying. And at that point in our investigation team, we had learned to say, I said this, or that was me, or, something to that effect, right, if we would have said something where it wouldn't have been audible.
Right.
But I don't know why. It does sound like it's saying, or yeah,
I can breathe or something.
I can't breathe, or something about breath. I honestly don't know what I would have been talking about, because it wasn't any particular like cold night or anything like that where like I would have had shortness of breath.
We were all wearing t-shirts.
Right.
I think Kyle was wearing a short, so it was nice. It was a nice night.
Yeah.
I think it was early summer, actually, probably around June or so. We had gone out there. But what's interesting to me about this clip, because it does sound like you, however, and I didn't play it here, but if you listen to the rest of the clip, neither Kyle nor myself actually respond to you saying I can't breathe, which is interesting because normally one of us would have been like, oh, I feel all right, or what are you feeling, or, something like that, or we would have tried to debunk why you're not breathing. Is it, mental? Is there some type of, whatever. Is the environment weird? Sometimes trees, there's a lot of shrubbery and trees, they give off that effect where you feel like you can't breathe. It's the humidity trapped beneath the leaves after a long day of sunshine and heat. But we never commented on it. It was really low. It was obviously a whisper under your breath. But this brings up another thing then, the manipulation of the human voice. Now, if it wasn't you, then there is a strong possibility it was an entity mimicking your own voice. Now, we've heard this over through multiple stories, both on television, through books, through witness accounts who've been one-on-one with us saying, oh, it sounded like so-and-so, or it sounded like my mom, or it sounded like, whoever who's still alive. I remember watching, and I brought up Ghost Adventures in the past. There have been spirits that have mimicked Zach's voice and have mimicked Nick Groff's voice back when he was on the show. They're both obviously very clearly alive because they're doing the episode.
Yeah.
So you have to wonder, was this a spirit that was mimicking your voice and saying, I can't breathe? Could this have been Stephen Hicks as he was knocked out and unable to move, maybe paralyzed, saying he couldn't breathe? Maybe the crushing weight of his rib cage being smashed or something. Who knows?
Yeah.
What is this? Is it a demonic entity? Because we know that demonic entities love to spend their time around negative energy. Yeah. Obviously, if there's a murder that's taking place, those negative entities are going to surround it like crazy.
Yeah.
So, who knows? I don't know. So whatever you guys are thinking, if you can hear that and tell us what you think it says, if you think it says I can't breathe or I can breathe, or if you have a completely different understanding of what that says, try to look at it from a skeptic's view and try to forget the ideas that we've already bestowed upon you, such as I can't breathe. Let us know what you think. Any further thoughts about that, Justin, about the situation or about the voice or anything?
It's kind of an undetermined, because if it was me, I don't remember why I would have been saying that. And if it wasn't me, then obviously something must have been mimicking my voice, because it did sound like my voice and kind of my speech pattern. So
right. All right. Well, we do have one more clip from the Jeffrey Dahmer house. This one, it's interesting because you can actually hear it better on my EVP device, on my voice recorder, digital voice recorder, than you can on here, I think. But nonetheless, go ahead and play that and listen very carefully. We'll play it twice for you guys. It's going to be the same thing. You're going to hear a clip, then you're going to hear a lapse of the voice, and then we'll do that whole thing again and go from there.
My name's Eric. I'm here to help you. But I should let you know that I'm not afraid of you. Jeffrey, if you're here, I'm not afraid of you. My name's Eric. I'm here to help you. But I should let you know that I'm not afraid of you. Jeffrey, if you're here, I'm not afraid of you.
Very, very, it's still chilling to me right now, listening to it. It's still chilling, and I actually turned up my volume this time as high as I could go to get an even clearer, sound from that clip. Context, real quick. Sitting in the bedroom of Jeffrey Dahmer, sitting on the floor, my back against the wall. It was actually, I can't remember if it was right before or right after I'd seen an orb. It was actually right before. It was before I seen an orb dart across the hallway past the door of the bedroom and into the bathroom, which I had gotten up to go look for. And so that visual of the orb actually correlates to this EVP a little bit, because you hear an EVP and then boom, you see evidence with your own eyes. Now, I think it's pretty clear. I think you guys heard it. If not, feel free to rewind this and listen to it again. But at the time, and still to this day, I hear me saying, "My name is Eric," and then there's an unknown entity or voice that then repeats my name, saying Eric in a whisper, but saying it fast, like Eric, like that.
And it's right on your exhale.
It's right on my exhale. It is. And that's what's a little hard it's hard to hear because of that. However, turning up the volume just now, and for those of you who haven't turned up your volume, turn it up. You notice something interesting, because I could do that. I can actually go, Eric, I could do that. However, when you're doing it, when you whisper your voice, your name or anything, that exhale stops for a moment. That sigh stops momentarily. In this clip, you can hear this voice over my sigh, and you can tell there's actually two layers. You have my sigh, and then you have a second layer that's even louder over the sigh, and you could tell that it's a different voice from my own. I mean, even now when I say, Eric, you can tell I've got a much higher voice than whatever this is coming in on EVP.
Well, and I know your OCD tics and everything, and there are people that have OCD tics and they'll say words kind of almost like a Tourette's type thing, and never have you ever said your own name as part of one of your tics that I've ever witnessed.
That's exactly. There's no way I would. My tics are interesting. I cannot say my name. I can say just about any name in the dictionary, but my own I can't do. So that. For personal experience, debunks me whispering my own name. I don't know what it was. I very well do think it was my name that I heard on there. I think you would agree.
Yeah.
And so, guys, girls, everybody, listen to that clip again. Let us know what you think. Do you hear my name? Do you hear Eric? Or do you hear something else? Please let us know, because, this is the thing about investigations and about EVPs and all evidence from all investigations, is that all evidence isn't necessarily conclusive, which means you can constantly go back, listen to it again, and find new things about that evidence that you may not have heard before, may not have seen before, especially with the changing of technology.
Right.
Photos are easier to see, videos easier to scan through. In this case, this EVP. So much better, so much more clear now than it was even back in 2009 because of the advances in technology.
Right. Well, like I was saying with if I was whispering, we would have said, "Hey, that was Justin." same thing if it would have been yourself or hearing something in the background. And like, for example, I would have said, Eric, whatever.
Right.
You would have said Justin in the background or people in the background.
Well, and then on top of that, and this is just to further validate, I think, this particular EVP, when you listen to the entire EVP, you could tell that the digital recorder is a good distance away from my mouth and from my voice. And you didn't
hear whatever it was.
Right. And so, my hand was probably down by my knee. I'm sitting there. So there's a good distance. And whatever that voices that came in was obviously right next to that recorder because of how loud it was. I would have had to, during the exhale, I would have had to pull the recorder up to my mouth, whisper, then put the recorder back. Now, the problem with that is if I did, you would hear a whole lot of jumbling going on there.
Yeah.
It would have picked it up. So obviously, I mean, to me, it's very obvious. It's clear. This is something, it's an EVP. It's a voice phenomenon. And I don't know who it was or what it was, but one of our best EVPs I think we'd ever gotten, for that matter.
Yeah. Well, that raises the same point with the one that you got that sounds like it's mimicking my voice.
Right.
Nobody responded to it. Nobody said, hey, that was so-and-so in the background, nothing like that. So I think that it is a very good EVP. Maybe not necessarily a Class A, but definitely a Class B, because even though you are hearing a sigh over the top of it, you can hear that voice there. So I think that that's one of the best ones we had ever gotten. All right, so to finish out our best of clips here, as I talked about, one of my favorite episodes is Evolution 2.0 with Perry Marshall. And I decided to use this clip because he makes a very bold statement and a very truthful statement that I feel that we all need to hear even today, celebrating the birth of Christ and everything. We need to hear this because it's very important. So here we go.
All right, that's pretty awesome. That's really cool. We actually have time for one more question here. So I just want to know, if you believe, why do you believe that it's important for science and religion to work together?
So, have you guys ever heard a story that goes like this? Christopher Columbus wants money to go on his trip across the pond and the Queen of Spain says, no, don't go, Christopher Columbus, because the earth is flat and you'll fall off the edge of the earth. Have you ever heard that story?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. You know that story is completely made up.
No.
Okay.
In 1871, a guy made that up, and it's still in textbooks.
Wow.
Okay. And the reason nobody thought the earth was flat in 1492. Nobody. Okay. They all knew the earth was round. They just didn't know how big it was. And all the debates was how far away is India? And Christopher Columbus thought it was close and other people thought it was far and he thought he could get there. They didn't think the earth was flat. Okay. A guy named John Draper made that story up in 1871 to make Catholics look stupid. And it worked. Okay. And since the mid-1800s, there has been this thing that historians call the conflict thesis, which says that science and religion are at war with each other. Well, before 1850 or so, somewhere around there, science and religion were not at war with each other. Christians didn't think that science was evil, and scientists didn't think that religion was stupid, and people believed that it could all fit together. And I think what's been going on for the last 150 years is a ridiculous war between like the creationists and the Darwinists in particular, and between religious zealots and atheists in particular. And it's totally ridiculous. There is no conflict between science and religion. There is no conflict between Christianity and evolution, but you just have to take a much wider view of things. And I think that this conflict is one of the most unproductive things going on in humanity, period. It's completely stupid. Like that Bill Nye Ken Ham debate that they had a few years ago, it was totally stupid. Both sides, okay, as far as I'm concerned, Ken Ham was misrepresenting Christianity and Bill Nye was misrepresenting evolution. And they did a bad job, both of them, and they both get an F from me. And if you read Evolution 2.0, you'll understand why. You'll understand they completely both missed the point.
Yeah.
If you understand evolution, you'll be so amazed. I don't think if you really understand evolution, I don't think you can do anything but go, my goodness, how did we get a universe that amazing?
Okay, so after listening to that clip, what are your thoughts now? I'm not sure if you remember your thoughts from when we did the episode, now, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, first and foremost, man, I love Perry Marshall. That dude was so fun to talk to. He was so easygoing, and I know people who rarely listen to our show who absolutely love that episode. I went ahead and personally promoted that episode to individuals outside of the internet. But his discussion on Evolution 2.0 and the idea in particular about his belief regarding how science and religion can be married, they can work together, is just outstanding. And you could tell in that little clip that he's very passionate about it. I mean, if we sit here and count the number of times he said stupid, I lost count. But, you know, it's interesting because there are so many things that he said that line up with my own Christian beliefs, but also line up with scientific beliefs that I have studied. You know, for those of you who don't know, I love science. I study science. I've studied astronomy and all that stuff, you know, all that science-based stuff. And it really helps with your faith, your Christian faith, your godly faith. They really should work together. And I think that science and religion can do that. But like he said, there's this thing, for whatever reason, there's this unseen force that says that science and religion can't work together. And it's really sad because there was a time where science and religion did work together.
Yeah.
Very clearly. And a clear example of that is Albert Einstein. He was both very bold in his faith and his belief system, but he was also very bold in his science. Yeah. And he used both of them to explain both of them. And there are a number of other scientists out there, both famous and non-famous, who have used both science to both prove religion and use religion to prove science. And I think it's very important that those two things should come back together and should definitely work intricately together in order to find the true answers of the universe for ourselves. Fun episode. That was such a fun episode. Yeah. I listened to that episode a couple times, and a lot of interesting stuff, both in that show and also in the book too.
Well, I feel that maybe somewhere down the road, whether he comes out with a new book or not, we might have to revisit with him because there was only so much that we kind of touched base on. But this particular statement was the one that rung the most true to me because we had talked about how he had done or come up with Evolution 2.0 coming from a business writing perspective because he was a business writer before he did this book. And this statement was very important to me because first and foremost, as much as we've been getting messages about the flat earth theory and whatever, it voices the opinion right from the bat that the flat earth opinion was not even a thing back in the time of Christopher Columbus. Maybe when we were much younger in our history it was, but before NASA was even like a thing, we knew that the Earth was round instead of flat. That's all I'm going to say on that.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at your face right now and I see so much more underneath
There's
waiting to get out.
There's a lot more I could say, but maybe it's kept for another episode or something. Second and foremost was the fact that it was somebody who was trying to make the Catholic Church look dumb that separated science from religion.
Mm-hmm.
And for a very long time, before even talking to Perry, I have felt that a lot of the stuff in the Bible was just trying to explain science in a time that religion was more predominant. So the fact that we had separated that, and now those two theologies are at war now, makes no sense whatsoever, because they were married at one time. Maybe they just got divorced, couldn't decide on who got the kids and then who got the property, and that's what's going on. I don't know. As you said at the beginning, my different things I say during episodes. But there should be no reason behind the problems that, we've even heard it from comments on different episodes where it's more of a scientific base, and people want to throw the religion thing in there, and it's like, okay, guys, I get your opinion, that's great, but you're not looking at from both perspectives, which is the whole point of our show. You're not listening to both sides. You're just siding on one side or the other, and that's it. So
well, and I think that's the issue, because that's what creates the controversy. That's what creates the separation. That's what creates that divide. It's choosing one side over the other. Heck, I mean, if that's the case, forget science, forget religion. We can get political today because of this. I mean, we're seeing two sides right now in the White House and in the political standings and rankings. We see it in America, white and black. Mexican and American, et cetera, no matter what it is, there's this divide. And I think this is a clear example and a great time to go ahead and say, hey, it's time to stop dividing this stuff up. We need to choose. I mean, sure, there's instances where you should choose one side over the other, depending on what the situation is.
Right.
But when it comes to science and religion, the two have to come together. They have to be one. We've used both science and religion on this show since day one. People have hated it. People have loved it. There's been no one who's really been indifferent. But you know what? The fact of the matter is, you're getting information.
Yeah.
Now, what you do with that information is completely up to you. But nonetheless, man, I agree with you and Perry. Something needs to change. Something needs to change.
Like you're saying with the separation of even nationalities, I feel that before 2018 happens, we need to see that everybody is a human, a person, a intelligent being, and come together, because right now we're heading to World War III. If nothing else, even a civil war, because we are separating on so many different issues and topics, and it's some of the most stupid topics in the world that I've ever heard of. So, but one thing that I want to bring up really fast, have you seen the commercial for Trumpy Bear?
Oh, God, no, I have not.
just thought I would ask, because Shelly had brought it up to me. I'm like, oh my God, this is so ridiculous.
Trumpy Bear.
For all of you out there, look at Trumpy Bear. I would love to hear your opinions on it, good, bad, or otherwise. I just would love to hear it. So, on that note, that is the last of the clips that we have for you. I'd asked you guys if you had any Q&A questions. Most of the stuff was, have you guys done an episode on this or an episode on that, which I'm pretty sure both people that had asked that I had shown that we have. But the one question that had come up for us, and I don't know if I even know your opinion on this, is from actually our Paratruth artist, Alex, who had asked, are we anti-vaxxers? And what that means is, are we anti-vaccination? So I figured I would throw it to you first and get your opinion before I voice mine.
Yeah. No, I'm not anti-vaccination. That's this opens a whole new can of worms, doesn't it? Thanks, Alex. Thank you.
and I mean, we can go in a lot more in depth on a future episode.
On another episode, absolutely. No, I am not anti-vaccination. I've had the flu shot numerous times. Obviously, as a child, you need vaccinations to protect you from certain diseases. I believe we've seen in the past how many infants, even in third world countries, how many infants die on a daily basis because they haven't had vaccinations and they die from disease. So I think vaccinations are very important. I don't believe that the medical field nor the government are lacing the vaccinations with any type of chemical or something to track us or create some type of who knows what military hybrid type thing. There's so many theories out there regarding this. I think they are safe. I think most of them are safe. I'm sure there are some that maybe are questionable. What do we really need a vaccination for? Like, do we need a vaccination for a disease that hasn't been prominent in over 300 years? Do we need one? I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. But then again, the Black Plague still exists, even right here in America. California still has the Black Plague. There are mice running around. There are places in Europe still have the Black Plague. So, I think it's important to have these vaccinations. Obviously, if that's the case, if we say, hey, are we anti-vaccination? Should we also be anti-everything else, anti-venom? If you get bit by a snake, we shouldn't need the venom because there might be something in it. So we die anyway. Okay, don't take it, right? So, I mean, at what point does that stop then if we're anti-vaccination?
Right. Well, this might be somewhat of a
cop-out?
No.
It sounds like sometimes.
It's probably going to be a little bit against yours. I've never gotten the flu shot. I don't believe in the flu shot at all. As a matter of fact, I think that some vaccinations or some boosters are hindering us in our attempt for trying to fight off things, because our bodies are made to fight off these things and build our own antibodies, which that is true that when we're getting certain shots or vaccinations, that is what's happening. But the flu shot in particular, I don't believe in. I do believe that vaccinations have eradicated a lot of diseases throughout the world today. But I also do believe that there are vaccinations that have been linked to children getting autism. Now, that doesn't mean to say that I'm against vaccinations, but what I am going to say to you is be aware of what's in your vaccinations. Be aware that there is a link to different disorders that have happened with vaccinations and autism or any other type of disorders. I'm not saying that I'm anti-vaccination, and what this is coming from, I had posted a thing on our Facebook page, which actually was a false thing. I admit that I didn't do research on it, saying that the FDA had admitted that there was a link between autism and vaccinations, and Heidi had brought up to me that on Facebook, on our post, that it was actually a false post. But I have known people that have had autistic kids and have had kids with other disabilities or disorders that they can link back to possibly the vaccinations that caused the problem. So, no, I'm not anti-vaccination in the sense that vaccinations have eradicated things, but be aware of the link to other disorders.
Very good. Folks, that brings us to the end of tonight's episode.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure. It's 2 hours long. We have not done a 2 hour episode. I can't believe we used to do 2 hour episodes on a regular basis when we were, early 20s or mid 20s.
And that was at midnight.
That was at midnight. We go till freaking 2 a.m. So pardon. Then we go till 2 a.m. Whew. Goodness gracious. Anyway, folks, this episode not only ends the episode, but it also ends.
Did you hear that?
No, what? I can't hear him. What am I listening for?
You know what you're listening for.
I'm kidding. I heard him. I heard. He's probably like, oh my gosh, 2 hours. 2 hours without food.
He's about to eat us.
Crud. Anyway.
Regardless, fun episode.
It was a fun episode. But this episode doesn't only conclude this episode itself, but we're also concluding this season of Paratruth Radio, which means that we won't be back for at least another month. And the reason for that, folks, real quick here, is because we're running a little limited financially. We need to save up some money in order to continue the show, and that's where the Patreon account comes in. This is something we tried in the past and then realized that not many people were giving, so we decided to kick it aside and keep it completely free. However, here we are, as we had predicted many months ago, we're struggling. So with that said, over the next month and a half, hopefully we can earn up some money and be able to pay for all the finances that we need to pay for in order to keep this show running on a regular basis for all of you. And so if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and check out our Patreon account. It is up on our website at paratruthradio.com. You'll see that. You can click on there. The cool thing about giving to the Patreon account is that you will now be eligible to receive different types of merchandise from us as well, depending on how much you give. And so all that will be located on the webpage as well. We're not going to get into that tonight because, well, again, it's a 2-hour episode and I'm tired. So, but you can receive like t-shirts, mugs, pillows, stickers, window decals, you name it. There's a bunch of different things. So
a chance to be in the episode with us. Be a part of our Discord server. If we are both on at the same time, there's this thing called appear.in where you'll be able to watch Eric and I shoot the shit and be able to comment on anything we're talking about.
You swore! God, forgive him.
But also personal vlogs on different topics and that sort of thing. So something Eric and I have been talking about over the past week because he's been saying things off air and I'm like, we should really offer that to people. So definitely make sure you're checking that out. If nothing else, if you want to do a one-time donation, there will be a possibility for that. And we would love for you guys just to share, like, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family all about Paratruth Radio, how much you love it. If we just got $1 per person a month, that alone would be a substantial amount that we can keep going as a yearly show compared to a seasonal show. So definitely at least check out the Patreon account, folks.
Absolutely. As for the seasonal stuff, what does it mean when we're moving into season 4? Well, we'll explain that via Facebook and our website and stuff like that for you guys to check out. So for those of you who follow us, stay tuned. More information will be coming in the coming weeks. Beyond that, I mean, do you have anything else before I go ahead and start closing us, or no?
Just happy
that's
New Year and Merry Christmas.
Absolutely. Tonight, if you're listening, Sunday night, Christmas Eve, guys, this is one of the most special nights in all the year because come morning, a Savior is born and it is exciting. This is a Savior who has led us to salvation, has given us the promise of...
Wait, he's going to be born again?
I said celebration of the Savior who was born. Anyway, That threw me off track. Oh, it's going so good. This is going to be like, boom, hammer down. We got this going. But no, you had to go and mess it up.
That's what I do best.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, the Savior who has promised us salvation, and that is entrance into heaven if we place our faith on him. Literally, this celebrates the beginning of all great things to come, and that have passed and are yet to come, for that matter. So again, as Justin said, I will say again, Merry Christmas to everybody listening, and for those of you who are not, Merry Christmas to you as well, and have a happy and safe New Year. Please be careful out there, as we know it's a crazy world. So until next time, whenever that may be, Season 4 of Paratruth Radio, my name is Eric.
And I'm Justin.
Peace.